It's in an aluminum enclosure that matches the Power Mac. It's got a one-piece aluminum stand that is just drop dead when you see it, and the quality is phenomenal. Take a look at the bezel. We've managed to get rid of a lot of stuff around the edges and really hug the displays with these new aluminum bezels. Take a look at the back. The back of these displays looks better than the front of most of our competitors.
I have been desperately searching for a display to hook up to my Mac ever since Apple got out of the display business in 2016 when they discontinued their Thunderbolt display and partnered with LG to make the LG Ultrafine 5K. And while in practice you might think that the LG Ultrafine 5K would be a suitable replacement for a Mac user, considering it basically was using the same exact panel as the 5K iMac at the time, you would be wrong, because there is much more to a monitor than just the panel itself, and I think a lot of people are missing the entire point about the Studio display. And yes, don't go right in the comments that Apple already made another display in 2019 with the Pro Display XDR. Yeah, I know Apple made that display, but it was $5,000 without the additional $1,000 stand. And while I do think that $1,000 for a stand is quite a bargain, $5,000 for the monitor, it was a little bit out of my price range. But the Studio display is not. Even at $1,600, I think that this monitor is well worth it for the entire package that you're getting. Let me explain. And the first thing that immediately struck me about the Studio display was during the unboxing. As soon as I opened this up, before even turning on the display, I was just struck by the design of this device. It's completely made out of aluminum. You could squeeze this thing and it's not going to creak like every other cheap plastic monitor on the market right now. It looks great from not only the front, which has narrower borders, at least more narrow than something like a 5K iMac. They're not completely bezel-less, obviously. But it also looks great on the back. Like, you flip this monitor around and it's not gunked up by like this kind of gamer aesthetic I see on a lot of high-end monitors. It's a very simple looking monitor. It's something that I want to put on my desk, and it just looks super elegant. And that even extends to the way you connect it to your Mac. So if you look at this monitor, you won't find a single power button. You won't even find a single control on it, because the way that this monitor works is that you take the included Thunderbolt cable that comes with this device and you connect it to a Mac with a Thunderbolt port on it. And once you connect it to your Mac, everything is handled through that connection. So the display boots up automatically, and then any other controls that you would want to access on the Studio display, you do that through the settings on Mac OS. So if you want to change the brightness, you either have to press the keyboard shortcut on your keyboard or go into System Preferences, or if you want to change the color profile, again, you would have to do that through System Preferences on Mac OS. What about the specs of the monitor, right? Like, I know it looks nice and I really like the design of it, but this isn't just a statue. It does have to function well as well. But the main specs of this monitor are pretty much similar to the 5K iMac, which I always thought had a really great looking display. So it's going to be a 27-inch display with a resolution of 5120 by 2880, which would give you 218 pixels per inch, which is Apple's defined display parameters for a 27-inch size that would fit the Retina resolution, where if you use this monitor at a normal viewing distance, about an arm's length away from you, you will not be able to see individual pixels on the display, and I find that to be pretty true. This 5K display is immaculately sharp, text is really sharp on this display, and everything about this display, is pretty much the same as the 5K iMac, so I really don't have to go too into it. If you've seen a 5K iMac panel before, you pretty much know what you're getting here. The colors look really accurate. They do pop, I think, too. It's a great looking LCD display. You get really good viewing angles because of that IPS panel. And it's even brighter now. It's now 600 nits of brightness compared to the old iMac panels, which only got up to 500 nits of brightness, and that is something I did notice. One of the first things I did when using the Studio display was crank up the brightness, and this thing got eye-searingly bright. There was even one time where I was editing yesterday's video in Final Cut Pro. I had it full screen, and Final Cut Pro is like a darker application, and I swiped over to Mac OS in the light desktop mode, and I was just greeted by a blinding light. I had to close my eyes because it was so bright. So the 600 nits on this are really bright. And it's something you have to be careful of because you'll see a lot of misleading marketing in the PC monitor space where you have display panels that can only get up to 400 nits of brightness or even match this 600 nits of brightness offered by the Studio Display. And these PC monitors will have the audacity to claim that they are HDR capable displays when it's not. It's all a software simulation. It's a gimmick for the monitors in those brightness ranges. And if you're looking at other HDR monitors, if you want to take Apple's, for example, with their Pro Display XDR, you're getting up to 1600 nits of peak brightness when you're controlling the brightness in some of those zones. And that's the same for Apple's recent MacBook Pros, which come with those mini LED displays. Now, is this Studio Display as good as those mini LED displays? No, they're not. They're just not. The mini LED displays have a lot of benefits going for them. Obviously, you can view HDR content properly on those displays, and also the displays themselves, because they can do local dimming, they get much deeper black levels. So if you're looking at a dark scene on the Studio Display, you're just not going to get those inky deep black levels that I love on the OLED displays and also the Apple displays with mini LED. But again, taking our expectations back, for a LCD panel, the same as the iMac, this is still a great looking display. A lot of people are just upset about this display, saying it's the same panel as the 5K iMac. That's an older display. We want something new. Well, listen, I think Apple obviously made this decision to hit this $1,600 price point. And if you're upset by the fact that it doesn't have HDR, know that if Apple actually shipped the Studio Display with HDR, you would be spending, I'm guessing, at least $3,000, because when you look at the other option that Apple has right now for an HDR-capable display, it is a bigger 32-inch display, but again, it's $5,000 without the stand. So I think this was the right choice to make for this display at this time. I obviously hope that Apple eventually expands their display lineup to include a more expensive HDR display, but I really felt like Apple needed an option for a display that was at least in the price range of being obtainable. And $1,600 is expensive. I'm not saying it's not expensive, but it is obtainable. And hey, it comes with the stand included. Now, obviously, there are cheaper displays than the Pro Display XDR or any of these other OLED or mini LED displays on the market right now that might give you better picture quality than the Studio Display. But I've also seen a lot of other people comparing this to cheaper monitors on the market. I think most notably, I've seen a lot of reviewers compare this to the more inexpensive LG Ultrafine 5K, which retails for $300 less than the Studio Display. But I really feel like by spending $300 less, you're ending up with a way worse overall package. First of all, the LG Ultrafine 5K, I think the design is pretty bland at best. It looks like every other generic PC monitor on the market right now, built with the same creaky plastic every time you go to touch or adjust that display. The build quality is not great. The LG Ultrafine 5K has also had a lot of issues throughout its lifetime with Wi-Fi dropouts, ports being finicky on the back. So far, everything I've tested with the Studio Display, 3 USB-C ports on the back have been pretty rock solid. And also even worse issues with things like image retention, which I saw on my LG Ultrafine 5K after using it for a prolonged period of time. The other thing I would say is that the LG Ultrafine 5K is just a pretty poor package in general. If you're looking for a complete monitor solution, that's an all-in-one built-in solution. And what I mean by that is the Studio Display comes with really excellent speakers. These are some of the best speakers, or I'm just gonna say, the best speakers I have ever heard in a monitor. They are really good to the point where I don't plan to hook up any sort of external speakers to the Studio Display. And I would say that the richness and clarity of them, I would say, are kind of HomePod level. And I would also say that the spatial audio feature that Apple likes to tout in some of their inbuilt speakers, I feel like on the Studio Display, I could hear the effect. I could feel the sound surrounding me when listening to content. The best thing I could say about the Studio Display, the best review I could give it, is that I was planning to shoot this review much earlier, and I came to the speaker portion of the test, And I sat there for 3 hours listening to all different types of music on the studio display. The speakers were that good where I just wanted to keep listening to them.
I was a fan of reruns and old movies. It's silly, but it's true for me. Oh, I needed to be sure of how the story ends. It's easy for me to stay right where it's safe and sound.
So what you're getting in the studio display is more of a complete package. It's not just the panel, it's also the design, the speakers, and the webcam. Okay, the webcam is kind of bad, I'm not gonna lie. So this is Apple's center stage webcam, which does do some cool software tricks where it starts off at a really ultra wide angle field of view, and then because the studio display has an A13 chip in it, yes, it has an A13 chip in it, the studio display will do basically the same thing that the iPad center stage does. So it will crop in on you and then use the software to kind of pan and zoom to follow you around. And it's a cool feature, right? I kind of like this in a dedicated monitor where it's kind of always set up in one area. If I was to take a video call on this, having it follow me around like that while I'm swiveling around my office chair, I think would just be a cool visual effect. The quality of that webcam itself, though, is just bad. But I kind of think that all webcams are bad. And I think a lot of the reason why this webcam is getting so much criticism is because you're basically viewing this really grainy 1080p webcam feed on a 5K 27-inch display. And, I looked at the webcam on my MacBook and, I was looking at it on that smaller 14-inch display and I was like, okay, the webcam here is a lot better. But then I took that recording and I brought it over to the 27-inch display. And when I blew that up, I started to notice all sorts of issues with the MacBook webcam as well. And you can see that in this test sample, the MacBook webcam, it looks like a painting. It doesn't even look like it came out of a camera. So the studio displays camera, I'm not saying it's good. It's really grainy. There's definitely problems with it. But I think when you compare it against other webcams, I think we're just gonna find out that all webcams are nowhere near as good as a dedicated camera. Now, to be fair, I guess, to the studio display, Apple says that there is a software update coming. Yes, there are software updates for the studio display. Again, it has a full A13 chip inside of it to control things like the speakers, the webcam, and I guess even the display itself. So this monitor is capable of being updated. I already had to update it once I unboxed it. So maybe an update is coming that will improve the quality of this webcam. But I still think at the end of the day, when you blow up this ultra wide camera, this 1080p camera on the 5K display, I just don't think it's going to look the best. That's all I'm gonna say about it. I think if you were to look at this studio display webcam feed on a smaller display, like your iPhone, I think it would be more than passable enough. What's also passable is the microphones. Theoretically, these should be really good microphones because they're the same excellent 3 microphone array that are in the MacBook Pros, which I absolutely raved about. And while technically these are the same microphones, the reason why they sound worse on the studio display is because of the proximity. So when you're using a 27-inch display, it is sitting much farther away from you than a laptop would. And as you're talking, it's just not picking up the fullness and the richness of your voice the same way a laptop would if you brought it over and just started talking like this. I conveniently had the laptop set up like that so I could just do that little shot right there. So studio display technically has same microphones, but because of the way you use them, they just kind of sound worse.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Greg here, and this is a test of the studio display's inbuilt microphone, so you can hear what I'm talking about when I'm saying that. If I get up really close and talk like this, I feel like the speaker quality's improved, but you don't want to do a video call like this with my face this close. I'm pretty sure about that. But the more you back up away from that microphone, the more you are sitting at a normal viewing distance, I think kind of the worse it sounds.
Are there other cons to this display? Yeah, there are. The included stand that comes with the $1,600 monitor just does tilt and doesn't do any sort of height adjustment. You could spend an extra $400 to get Apple's, stand that does height adjustment and tilt, But, you know, for $400, that's the part where I start to think, okay, maybe that is slightly a ripoff. I think most people would be better off spending their money on a monitor riser, or hey, if you picked up the Mac Studio, you can place the studio display directly on top of that and maybe make the monitor more height appropriate. And overall, at $1,600, I do think the studio display is expensive. I'm not saying it's not worth it, but I am saying it is definitely a high-priced item. But overall, I do think the overall package of the studio display is worth that $1,600 asking price when you're comparing it to other 5K monitors on the market. You're getting a way better design, which I think is going to be important to a lot of Mac users. I think primarily one of the reasons why I'm really drawn to Apple devices is the design of their products, and I think this studio display has an excellent looking design. It's something I want to place on my desk. It's something I want to go up to and start using. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, who cares about the design? Why does it matter if a monitor is designed nicely? All that really matters is how the panel looks. And to that, I would say, when a product is nicely designed, it's something that can inspire you. It's something that you might want to use. If you have to look at something that's really ugly all day, you're not gonna wanna go up to it and use it. And when it's time to work, when it's time to make these videos, I wanna go sit at something and be inspired, look at something where it's a design I can appreciate. You know, when I go to a coffee shop, I wanna go sit at a nice coffee shop while I drink my coffee. I don't wanna go drink my coffee at a dentist's office. Who wants to hang out in a dentist's office all day? I just think that would be miserable. And that's packed in with a monitor that I wanna use. Even though this isn't the mini LED monitors of the MacBook Pro or the Pro Display XDR, this is a monitor that I really like the picture quality of, and it's something that I definitely wanna, as soon as I'm done recording this video, I actually can't wait to start, editing this on the studio display. I really like how that monitor looks. And I think overall, for the $1,600 asking price, I think a lot of reviewers just aren't taking into consideration things like the speakers, where you're getting really excellent speakers to the point where I don't think you're going to need to hook up any external speakers to this monitor. And then you just get that really clean, elegant, single monitor on your desk, has everything built inside of it that you want to use, connect it through a single Thunderbolt cable, and that sort of simplicity, that ease of use, that picture quality, that build quality, that speaker quality, everything I want in a monitor is here in the studio display, which is why I plan to use it as my monitor. This is gonna be my monitor. I'm not just saying this and going, oh, it's a great monitor, you should use it. Yeah, this is the monitor that I think makes the most sense for me in the price range, for the amount of features you're getting, for the complete entire package. I say the studio display is definitely worth it if you're like me and you have been searching for a Mac monitor for the past 6 years. But hey, that's why I like the studio display. Hopefully you like it too. If you do like it, or hey, if you like this video, make sure you leave me a like. If you want to see more from the channel, make sure you're subscribed. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.